Welcome to the notes on rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. So these are all quadrilaterals and these are all parallelograms. So when we look at a rectangle, they have all the properties of a parallelogram. We'll talk about those in a second, but they also have two more. All right, so in a rectangle, all four angles are congruent. And in a rectangle, they happen to all be 90 degrees or right angles. So in a rectangle, we now know all four angles are congruent. And their diagonals will be congruent. So they not only bisect, but they're all going to be equal. So diagonals are equal, or I'm going to say congruent. So those are two more additional properties we have to remember about a rectangle. Now a rhombus, well, they have all the properties again of a parallelogram because it is, and it has three additional. So in a rhombus, all sides are equal. So I'm going to scroll up real quick here. All four sides are the same. So in a rhombus, if they tell you rhombus, we know that all four sides are the same. Well, what else do we know about a rhombus? Well, we know that their diagonals actually bisect every angle. It cuts every angle in half. So just kind of keep, now, again, the opposite angles will be congruent. These will actually be double, double, and two tick marks because they'll be congruent to each other. But diagonals bisect the angles. All right, and then there is one more additional property, Yes, the diagonals, not only do they bisect the angles, the diagonals are perpendicular. They form 90-degree angles. So that's something we'll have to remember about rhombuses. Finally, the square, that is like the ultimate mixer, all right? It mixes all the properties of a parallelogram, rectangle, and square. From the rectangle, we know that all four angles, all right, are right angles. We know that the diagonals will be congruent. Okay, we also know that from a rhombus that the diagonals are perpendicular. We know the diagonals, again, they're all equal. We know the diagonals will also bisect those angles right there. And then we also know from a rhombus that all four sides are the same. So a square combines them all. So I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of properties. Remember, please refer to this chart. In yellow, all right, we've got the parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, and square at the top. The yellow are all the properties of a parallelogram. They all have those properties. And then down here, we have each additional one. We know that the rectangle has the four right angles and the congruent diagonals. We know the rhombus adds these. And then we can see that the square has all of them, all the yellow and all of those. So please refer back to that chart if you can't remember. Now let's take a look at some examples. You'll see they're really pretty straightforward. Okay, first thing you got to ask yourself, what shape is it? All right, this one's a parallelogram. Now, they give us, if they want us to solve for x and y, well, where is x? Well, x is an angle. Okay, so we know that this side right here, these lines are parallel, and the diagonal is actually a transversal. So we know that this angle and this angle will be congruent because they're alternate interior angles. So there's those properties we learned earlier this year. So that would be 13 degrees. Okay, now where's y? Okay, well, y is right here. It's part of a diagonal. So what properties do we know about diagonals? Oh, they bisect each other. If this side's 3.2, that means that side's 3.2. You're done. All just based off knowing those properties. Okay, now we know we've got a rhombus. Okay, so we want to solve for x and y again. Well, x, that's a side. We know that all the sides are the same, so that's 12. Okay, and y, well, that's an angle. Well, we know that the diagonals bisect the angle. So if that side's 68, we know that that's 68 degrees. You're done. It's that simple just by knowing those properties. Two more quick ones. Why not? Okay, find x. Well, that'll be x is a side. We know that all the sides are the same, so that's 15. Find y. Well, it's an angle formed by the diagonals. Well, we know that all the diagonals are 90 degrees. They're perpendicular, so that's 90 degrees. Then finally, we've got another parallelogram. This one will be a little bit more involved, all right? If we want to find x and y, well, I can tell you that x, all right, again, alternate interior angles. Here's our transversal. So x is going to be 36 degrees. Now, how are we going to find y? Well, we're actually going to look right here. If you notice, we've got a triangle. Okay, we've got a triangle right there with where we know two of the three angles. So how do you find the third angle? Well, this is where we do the 180. All right, we do minus 62, minus 36, and that will give us the value of that final angle, and that will be an alternate interior with this angle right here. Plug that into your calculator. That will give you what y is. And there you have the additional properties of rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. Refer to that chart. I know it's a lot to remember.